You are sitting by a fire. It is 50,000 years ago. The sun just went down. There is no light switch, no phone, no worry about an email waiting for you tomorrow. There is just you, the flames, and thick smoke drifting straight into your face. You breathe it in without thinking. It stings your eyes a little. It always does. And somewhere, at some point, one of your ancestors looked at that same smoke and thought something new. Not how do I get away from this? Something closer to, what if I did this on purpose? Here's the thing nobody tells you about smoking. It didn't start with tobacco. Most people think smoking began with cigarettes, or maybe with old Western movies, or with tobacco farms in America. That's wrong. Tobacco is actually one of the newer chapters in this story, not the first one. The urge to breathe in smoke on purpose goes back much further than that. It may go back further than farming, further than pottery, possibly further than modern humans ourselves. Once you see how old this habit really is, the whole story of smoking looks completely different. Here's what the evidence actually shows. Before anyone could smoke anything, they needed fire. And fire has been part of the human story for a very long time. The oldest confirmed proof of controlled fire use comes from a site called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. It is about 1 million years old. Scientists found burnt plant ash and charred bone there, not from a wildfire, but from a fire that was kept going on purpose inside the cave again and again. 1 million years ago, we were not even Homo sapiens yet. That was Homo erectus, an earlier relative of ours with a smaller brain. But they sat around fires, they cooked with them, they stayed warm by them, and every single time they did, they breathed in smoke. This happened every day for hundreds of thousands of years to every human and near-human ancestor who ever sat near a flame. It was unavoidable. Here is where it gets interesting. Not all smoke is the same. When you burn a plant, you are not just releasing plain steam. Depending on what is burning, you can release a whole mix of chemicals. Some plants, when burned, release compounds that affect the brain in ways a person can actually feel. This is not a fringe idea. Researchers have suggested for years that early humans living in forests would have regularly breathed in smoke from plants like cannabis and other mind-altering plants that grow naturally across Africa, Europe, and Asia. Here is the surprising part. The human brain already has spots built to respond to some of these plant chemicals. These are called cannabinoid receptors, and they are part of a system in your body called the endocannabinoid system, which helps control things like mood, memory, and appetite. That system did not appear because of cannabis. It was already there, doing other jobs. But because it was there, when a human first breathed in smoke from a burning cannabis plant, their brain did not react with confusion. It reacted like something it already recognized. That first accidental breath near some prehistoric fire might be where all of this really began. Not a plan, not a decision, just an accident that felt good, that happened again and again until someone decided to make it happen on purpose. Think about that for a second. Centuries of ritual, entire cultures built around it, a massive global industry today. All of it might trace back to one tired person sitting downwind of the wrong plant, having an unexpectedly good evening. Now we need to be careful here, because there is a difference between ancient humans smoking something by accident and ancient humans growing and preparing something specifically to smoke. Let's look at what the actual physical evidence tells us. The oldest confirmed proof of people intentionally using cannabis comes from a burial site in the Pamir Mountains in Central Asia. It dates back to around 500 BC, roughly 2,500 years ago. Archaeologists found wooden containers holding stones that had been heated on purpose, and next to them, the remains of cannabis plants with unusually high levels of the chemical that produces its strongest effects. This was not wild cannabis grown for rope or seeds. This was a stronger version placed deliberately in a burial. But here's a question worth sitting with. Just because we have not found older proof, does that mean it did not happen earlier, or does it just mean we have not found it yet? Organic material like seeds, leaves, and plant fiber almost never survives for thousands of years in the ground. We still have stone tools from 3 million years ago because stone barely breaks down. A wooden pipe filled with dried plants, on the other hand, can disappear completely within a few centuries. So the fact that we have not found older proof does not prove it did not exist. There is also something called the Herodotus problem. Herodotus, an ancient Greek historian, wrote in detail about a nomadic people called the Scythians. He described them setting up small enclosed tents, heating stones until they glowed, then throwing hemp seeds onto the hot stones and breathing in the smoke inside the tent. For a long time, historians assumed he was exaggerating. Then archaeologists actually dug up Scythian burial mounds. They found exactly what he described: metal containers, heated stones, and hemp residue. He had not been exaggerating at all. Let me throw something at you that might sound wild. Some researchers believe the urge to change your own mental state is not just a habit humans picked up along the way. They think it might be something closer to a basic biological drive, similar to hunger or thirst. A researcher named Ronald Siegel, who studied this at UCLA, proposed something called the intoxication hypothesis in the 1980s. His idea was simple. Across nearly every human culture ever studied, people have found ways to change how their mind feels. They have drunk fermented drinks, eaten certain mushrooms, breathed in smoke, and chewed specific plants. This shows up again and again in cultures that had no contact with each other. Siegel argued this was not an accident. He believed the drive to seek altered states might be built into animal brains generally, humans included. I'm not saying every animal is out here trying to get high on purpose, but the examples are strange enough to make you pause. Elephants deliberately seek out fermented fruit that has started to ferment on its own. Reindeer in Siberia have been seen eating a certain mushroom that affects the mind, and then drinking the urine of other reindeer who ate the same mushroom because the active chemical passes through mostly unchanged. If this drive really is that old and that deep, then it makes sense that early humans, long before pottery, long before farming, long before anything we would recognize as a pipe, may have already been seeking out smoke from certain plants on purpose. Maybe they learned which smoke made them feel calm and which smoke could kill them, sometimes the hard way. That knowledge would have been passed down, person to person, around fires, long before anyone could write any of it down. Different ancient cultures ended up doing very similar things with smoke, often with zero contact with each other. In ancient Egypt, smoke was medicine. One of the oldest medical documents in the world, called the Ebers Papyrus, dates back to around 1550 BC. It describes treating throat and lung problems by having a sick person breathe in smoke from heated herbs, including a plant called henbane. That sounds backwards to modern ears, treating a lung problem with smoke, but some of those herbs really did have effects that helped when inhaled. In ancient Greece, doctors did something similar. Hippocrates, the same person doctors are named after when they take their professional oath today, wrote about breathing in herbal vapors to treat lung disease and other conditions. The logic actually made a kind of sense for the time. Smoke reaches the lungs directly, so if a plant has healing properties, delivering it through smoke was a reasonable idea. In ancient India, a practice called dhumapana, meaning smoke drinking, is described in texts going back more than 3,000 years. It involved breathing in medicinal herbs through pipes with specific plants used for specific health conditions. This was not casual. It was a structured medical system, refined over centuries. Meanwhile, in what is now Utah, in the United States, researchers made a striking discovery in 2019. In the Great Salt Lake Desert, they found a fire pit around 12,000 years old, containing the seeds of a wild tobacco plant. These seeds weren't scattered by accident. They were placed in a way that suggested it was done on purpose. This is far older than any pipe or pottery found in that region, and it pushes back how long people in the Americas may have been using tobacco. Tobacco itself only grows naturally in the Americas. That means it was completely unknown anywhere else in the world until European explorers arrived there in the late 1400s. When Columbus reached the Caribbean, he wrote in his own journal about seeing local people walking around with small glowing sticks, breathing in smoke, and letting it back out through their nose and mouth. His crew was confused. Within weeks, his crew was trying it too. But in the Americas, tobacco was not a casual habit. It was sacred. It was used in healing ceremonies, in communication with the spirit world, and to seal agreements between different groups. Blowing smoke towards someone was treated as a gesture of respect and connection, not something to do absent-mindedly. That is a large part of why it stayed so controlled and ceremonial in these cultures for thousands of years. Across every one of these places, Egypt, Greece, India, the Americas, and the Central Asian steppe, cultures with no contact with one another, arrived at the same basic idea. Burn a plant, breathe in the smoke, and something in your body or mind will respond. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Everything you just heard describes smoking as something careful, ceremonial, medical, or spiritual. That changed fast once it reached Europe. When tobacco arrived there in the 1500s, it spread with incredible speed. Within decades, it went from a strange import to something used across the entire continent. By the 1600s, it was being traded around the world. By the 1700s, powdered tobacco called snuff was fashionable among the wealthy in Europe. By the 1800s, cigars were everywhere. By the early 1900s, the machine-made cigarette had been invented, and that changed everything again, making tobacco cheaper, faster to use, and far more addictive than anything before it. What had taken indigenous cultures thousands of years to build into something careful and deeply respected was turned, in the hands of European industry, into a mass-market product in under 400 years. Then it got darker. Through the 20th century, tobacco companies spent decades and enormous amounts of money hiding evidence their own scientists had already found, that cigarettes caused cancer. They marketed cigarettes directly to children. They paid doctors to publicly endorse smoking. They deliberately altered the chemistry of cigarettes to make the nicotine hit faster and harder, specifically to make people more addicted. A shaman placing cannabis on heated stones during a burial ceremony, and a tobacco executive approving an advertising campaign aimed at teenagers, both technically involve the same basic act, smoke, but almost nothing else connects them. One end of this story is reverence. The other end is a deliberate, profit-driven addiction machine. So why does any of this matter now? Because the pull toward altering your own mental state clearly did not disappear. It just changed shape. Whether it is a cigarette, a vape, a drink, or something else entirely, that same ancient pull described by the intoxication hypothesis is still sitting somewhere inside modern human behavior. And the medical instinct never fully went away either. We still deliver medicine straight into the lungs today, through asthma inhalers, through anesthetic gases in hospitals, through nebulizers for people with breathing conditions. The specific plants changed. The idea of sending medicine directly into the lungs through inhaled vapor did not. The social side never disappeared either. Shared rituals, whether that is a shared meal, a shared drink, or historically a shared smoke, still build trust and connection between people today. Modern research on the brain has actually confirmed this. Doing something together in sync genuinely strengthens the sense of trust and belonging between people. Ancient humans were not wrong about that. They just did not have the brain scans to prove it yet. So we still do not know the exact moment ancient humans started smoking on purpose. We may never know for certain. What we do know is that the physical proof takes us back at least 12,000 years, and the underlying behavior, the pull to alter your own mind, to share a ritual, to use smoke as medicine, is almost certainly far older than any object we have ever dug up. It might be as old as fire itself, because somewhere deep in that story is a person sitting by a fire, noticing something in the smoke felt different, and thinking, let me do that again. That was not addiction. That was the very human habit of paying attention to cause and effect and acting on it. The plants changed, the rituals changed, the reasons changed, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But the behavior itself, breathing in something burning on purpose, was already ancient long before anyone thought to write any of it down. So next time you flip on a light switch, or sit around a fire on a cool night, or catch a drift of wood smoke passing by, you're touching something far older than you probably realized. Fire, smoke, breath, a thread that runs unbroken through nearly the entire story of being human.